Okay, I'll start. Everybody, welcome to this plenary. It's called Listen Up and Speak Out because I'm focusing very much as I did in my workshop on the speaking and listening skills that we want to practice with our students in the classroom. I'm just going to tell you what we're going to be doing in this session. There'll be some information from me. There'll also be opportunities for some participation from you as well. So, I'm going to start with this lovely picture because what I see going on here is, I think, a really nice example of classroom interaction. We recognise that speaking and listening skills are challenging for our students, and it's also something of a challenge for teachers as well. And what we can see in this picture is a teacher who's obviously doing some kind of speaking and listening activity with her students. Do they look like they're enjoying it? They do, don't they? Do they look like they're involved? Yes. So this is something that we need to think about in our own classrooms. If we're going to set up speaking activities with our students, how do we make sure that it's motivating and enjoyable for students? And how do we also make sure that as many students as possible are involved in the activity? Okay, so what are we going to be thinking about now? I'm going to focus on a couple of what I consider to be key areas. How can we practice listening and speaking skills with our students? And I'm thinking here very much around the grade 4, grade 5, grade 6 levels. How can we help students develop these skills? And what motivating activities can we do with them in the classroom? I get the feeling, having listened to some of your contributions already in the plenary stage this morning and in the workshops that I attended in Iran, that you have some really great ideas about what you can do with your students in class. There's a lot of creativity here in this room. Teachers don't seem to be short of good ideas to use with their students. So the combination of the course book and your own creativity, I think, is a really, really good one. And your students are lucky to have you. But as teachers, we're all here today because we want to continue our professional development and learn more about what we can do to help our students learn English better. So there may be activities that are new for you today. There may be some that you already know. I hope it's going to be of benefit to everyone. So, let's think a little bit about our course book. Now, English for Palestine, this is actually from grade 5, and you're all familiar with the format of the course book, the way that it tackles the 4 skills and gives students the opportunity to practice those skills in class. I'd like you to have a look at this stage. Now, just to remind you, okay, this is actually, it's called Mini Olympics. I don't know if you can see the title up at the top there. And it's actually 3 parts to this particular lesson. You've got listen and repeat, listen and answer the questions, and listen and say. If we focus particularly on listening skills right now, can you just talk to your partner, just very, very briefly, and decide what are the main stages here? Why are we doing these 3 activities with our students? What is the purpose behind them? So what is the kind of the methodology, if you like, of each of those stages? Don't make this answer too complicated. It's quite a simple answer. So looking at those stages there, what is the purpose behind them? Would you like to share your ideas with your partner now, just briefly? Thank you, everybody. Did anybody decide this was the pre-task? Yeah, maybe you called it something else, that's absolutely fine. But basically, that is a pre-task activity, and it's activating students' knowledge of particular vocabulary. Why do we use the pre-task stage? We are preparing students for the actual listening task itself. Yes, thank you. So it could be some kind of warming up stage, activating their knowledge of a subject or particular vocabulary area in some way. Okay, did you call these the while tasks or during tasks? Okay, doesn't matter what you call them, they have different names, but basically they are activities which students do while listening. We know that if we just give students something to listen to, whether it's a text or a story or a song, if we don't involve them in some way, the good students are going to be interested and they will probably understand quite a lot of what they're hearing. But we have to remember the weaker students as well. And as we know, within our classrooms, we have a range of abilities. And therefore, the while listening or during listening tasks are there to support all the students so that everybody at least has a chance to understand what they're hearing. Let's have a look then at the kind of pre-tasks you can do. If they're related to vocabulary, you might have ways of introducing key vocabulary to your students, and your course book obviously does a lot for you. It helps you with that initial stage. You might introduce key chunks or phrases. Are you familiar with this idea of a chunk? Thank you. All right, so groups of words, or you might say phrases, and chunks are recognised as being useful for learners. I used a chunk just at the beginning, didn't I? I said, Kev Halkum. Okay, now that's a chunk of language. I can't pretend that I understand each component in that phrase, but somebody's told me the phrase, I've repeated the phrase, and I know what it means in terms of communicative function. So it's good for our students to also be introduced to chunks of language, and they learn them as a phrase and then hopefully use them in the appropriate context. We have lots of nice things we do with students, for example, miming or using students to act out the meanings of words. Very much as Wendy was saying in her plenary, we want to try and involve students on a multi-sensory level. So we want to use visual, auditory, kinesthetic techniques to benefit the different range of learning styles in our classes. So mime is a good way of doing it. Acting is also another way. Something that is useful over and above vocabulary is schema activation. Schema or schemata, are you familiar with that term? Oh, well done. So what is your schema? Thank you, your background knowledge. So any topics that you're doing in class, they need to be introduced to your students, and their own knowledge of that subject, the background knowledge they have, needs to be activated as well. And there are ways of doing that. You might do it through brainstorming. And teachers like to brainstorm either as a class or putting students into small groups. Brainstorming alone is quite a sad and depressing experience. It's just more fun to do it either in 2s, 3s or small groups. And obviously the idea that, two heads are better than one applies here. So brainstorming can be very, very beneficial for activating students' knowledge of a topic. Teachers like to use pictures with their students, again, because of the visual element, and there are various things you can do. True-false facts, for example, can work very well, but you can also ask students to answer questions about pictures. Another nice activity is to reveal a picture very slowly to students and just get them to try and guess what they think is in the picture, what they can see. And this arouses their curiosity and also at the same time activates what they know about a topic. You might also want to do story prediction. So if you use pictures, getting students to think about how the pictures may be linked together, maybe what happens later on in the story. So involving their creativity and imagination in some way. What about the tasks that students do during a listening text? Well, obviously we want to encourage them to participate in some way. They can do this through repetition, so repeating key words or phrases in the story. You might ask them to do certain actions when they hear particular words. So again, this benefits kinesthetic learners a lot, but all learners, especially sort of the lower grades, basically benefit from kinesthetic activities. It's how young learners often like to learn and how they naturally learn. So actions can work very well. Have you ever got your students to make sounds? Okay, so what kind of sounds could students make rather than random sounds? Good, thank you. So if it's a story or a text about animals, you could actually get students to respond through the sounds of the animals. And students like this, it becomes a very memorable activity for them and hopefully also enhances the meaning of the text that they're listening to. Other techniques that teachers use, are you familiar with ideas like pause and predict or pause and recall? You can probably guess what it means. So while students are listening to a text, you might actually stop it and get students either to say what they think is going to happen next or to recap or recall what's happened up to that point. Now, something we haven't considered as yet are the role of post-tasks. So in other words, when you've completed the activities in your coursebook related to the text, what might students do afterwards? Well, we can focus on comprehension type checking activities, and true-false statements or responses to a text can be very, very helpful. Ordering events. If you have a text which lends itself to ordering, teachers often like to get students to order what happened. This can either be done visually through pictures, or you might do it through simple statements which students read and then put in order. All of this is checking understanding and helping them to engage a little bit more with the content. You might also want to do something on language, so focus particularly on vocabulary or structures that were included in the text. You've got things like gap-filling activities, crosswords or word searches, and we'll have a look at one of those in just a second. The nice thing about things like word searches and crosswords is that they're fun, they're enjoyable. There's an element possibly of competition, and students therefore will probably find it more motivating. There's a word search there. Are you familiar with how that works? Yeah? Okay. It's very easy to do, and there's actually a website which will help you to make your own word searches. You just choose whichever topic you want to. You put in the words that you want your students to find, and then the website will do the work for you. It makes a word search like that for you. You can then print it out and use it with your classes. I don't know whether you can see this one. This is family members. All right. At the bottom, you've got the vocabulary items which you want your students to find. And then basically what students do is they have to circle or mark on their paper the particular words. It's obviously very good for word recognition, it's good for spelling practice, and there may be other activities you can do as a result of this. There we go, I've been busy, I've done it for you. Can everybody see that one? What does it say? Good, aunt. Okay, that one? Good, all right, fine. That's the website address there, if you're interested. Okay, so www.armouredpenguin.com/word search. And that will make word search puzzles for you. So you can then, it's nice, you can adapt the word search specifically to the vocabulary that you've been practicing with your students. So it's a nice way of recycling vocabulary in class. Has everybody got that address? Okay. Post-tasks. If we want to, again, expand students' knowledge about the language they've been practicing, you might like them to act out a scene from the particular unit in the coursebook. So I think one of the first pages we looked at was a race being run by the characters in English for Palestine. You might get your students to act that scene out in small groups, each student taking on one of the characters. You might get students to draw favourite scenes and then maybe write a little summary of the activity or the story underneath. You might get them to draw story timelines, so what happened first, next, after that. Again, this is all good for visual learners and kinesthetic learners too. You might get them to make bookmarks, so they might want to decorate and use these in their course book. They might make story hats. I've got some pictures of those in just a second. And you might get them to prepare a storyboard. Storyboard is where they actually draw simple pictures which show the events in the story. And they can also write a little sentence or summary underneath each picture if it's helpful. Those are story hats there. So students make their own hats and decorate them with pictures and with stories, statements, sentences, etc. So it's something which will involve younger learners in the language and hopefully motivates them as well. It's a personalised activity and they can then use their story hats later on in different contexts in class. Now we've looked at some ways of approaching listening activities in class. We're lucky that we have lots of listening material actually in our course books. And for many of you, if you use other listening material which is available online, that can also benefit your students as well. We're going to move now to this topic of speaking. And this is a question that I hear many teachers talk about. Why don't our students speak English in class? There are many reasons for this. I can't pretend that I know all the answers to this, but we're going to think a little bit about what might help our students to speak more in the classroom. The first area I'm looking at is actually our use of L1 and L2. If you imagine what your students might say about this situation. For example, if our teacher doesn't speak English, why should we? I work in many different countries and I'm lucky enough to visit teachers in their classrooms. And I see a great range of teaching abilities and also the amount of English that teachers use in class. Now, in many countries, teachers will use English throughout the lesson. They choose when to use the mother tongue. It might be because a vocabulary item is particularly difficult for their learners and they will translate it. That's absolutely fine. So we're talking here about how teachers might balance use of L1 and L2. I think it is a balance because I'm sure you'd agree, if your students are only hearing their mother tongue in a lesson, they're actually not having any exposure to English, and as a result, they don't get the practice that they need. So how might we strike a balance between L1 and L2? And what does it mean for us as teachers to judge when it's appropriate to use mother tongue and when to use English? I'm going to do a little demonstration with you, which may kind of persuade you that it is possible to use English in the classroom quite extensively. Does anybody know which language we're looking at here? Right. Does anybody speak Chinese here? Nobody. That's good news. Because I'm going to give you a quick demonstration in Chinese. Okay? Now, for those of you who came to my workshop earlier on in the day, I mentioned a little bit about the importance of using English as much as possible and of also putting people like you in the position of learners again. It's not something we're familiar with. We've been using English now for a long time. We've forgotten what it's like to be a learner in a foreign language, unless some of you have been learning a foreign language more recently, in which case you know exactly what I mean. So what I'm going to do is a quick little vocabulary activity with you in Chinese. And all you have to do is follow my instructions and you'll be fine. Okay. After we've done that, I've got a few questions that I'd like to ask you about the experience and what implications this has for us in the classroom. 好了，现在我们说韩语好不好？不好，你为什么你不高兴？为什么？为什么？好了，好了，我的学生，这是我2个、3个、4个照片。好了，这是什么？这是什么？ 好了，你可以听吗？你可以听。接着西红柿，西红柿，你可以说吗？可以说。你可以听吗？西红柿，西红柿。你说的很好，你说的很好。这是什么？这是什么？这是这是鸡蛋，鸡蛋，鸡蛋。对不起啊，对不起，这是西红柿，这是西红柿，这是什么？鸡蛋。好了，这是什么？这是冰，冰，冰，很好。还有，这是4个，这是什么？这是香蕉，这是香蕉。好了。因为是很聪明，这是很好，谢谢你，谢谢。Okay, everybody, thank you. You are very good at speaking Chinese. Excellent students. Okay, now, the reaction as I was looking was quite interesting. Clearly, some of you were really quite interested in this idea and quite excited. And some of you maybe felt a little bit nervous, a little bit like, oh, I don't feel comfortable in this situation. Suddenly, I can't understand what my teacher is saying. Yeah, she's using all these kind of strange sounds which don't make any sense to me. Interestingly, you all seem to do what I asked you to do. And yet, you probably didn't know on a kind of linguistic level what I was asking. But you used your knowledge of body language, gestures, facial expressions. Yeah, you kind of predicted from what I was doing as to what I wanted you to do. And in actual fact, you did it very, very well. Do you think you understood what you were saying? You know what that is, don't you? Oh, well done in Chinese as well. Yeah, very good. Yeah, I mean, when I show a picture of a banana, I'm probably getting you to repeat the word for banana in Chinese. Yeah, I'm probably not talking about something completely different. So I think in the same way that you made sense of that experience, you can kind of assume that your learners would be able to do the same. And I think this makes a very strong case for why we can use English right from earliest grades, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, with our students. Because if we support it with visuals, with body language, with simple instructions, I was saying to you, 你可以听吗？你可以听, which means can you listen? 你可以说? 你可以说? Again, because of the gestures, at the beginning, you would be focusing on the gestures only. But after a few lessons, when I said 你可以听吗? You'd be fine, all right? Our learners can do the same. They make sense of what they see and what they hear. And with repetition, I think they can actually respond to your instructions, explanations, etc. Quite easily. Now, as somebody who has learnt other languages from the countries that I've lived in, but I've never been confident or even wanted to use those languages in my classroom, I've only ever taught through English. You have a choice, and you're very lucky in that sense, that because you have access to both languages, you can use both languages when you want to in the classroom. So I envy you because you have that ability. But I think as teachers, we need to be aware of what the balance is. At lower levels, I think mother tongue is a great support and help for students. It gives them the security they need. At higher levels, I think you can then start to bring in a lot more English, more explanations in English, more certainly instructions, but that kind of other language that we use in the classroom can also be delivered in English. So your students are getting that exposure and also engaging in real communication. Okay, moving on. The teacher's use of process language. I wonder if you're familiar with that term. Let's have a look at a few examples. A student might say, we don't have enough phrases to use in class. Now, classroom language is obviously very much connected to what we do every day with our students. Things like, good morning, how are you, open your books, stand up, look at the board. That's all language that we need for our management of the classroom. Process language is a little bit different. It's more related to these ideas, getting students to share opinions, for example, I think, or I believe, agreeing and disagreeing, yes, you're right, or I don't think so. It's helping students to actually do things like discuss, negotiate, share, agree, disagree, etc. in the classroom. And I think this is something that we can encourage our students to do, but they'll only do it if we give them good models. So I think it's something that can actually support the work that's going on in classrooms over and above the normal classroom language that we use. We want to, as much as possible, maintain variety in our classrooms because I think that students, as we know, they get bored easily, they have short attention spans, and we need to be able to keep them involved in various ways. Unfortunately, we may hear or know that our students think about this from time to time. English is too hard sometimes and a bit boring. Now, we can't please all the students all the time. We do our best. But I think if we find out what our students enjoy, particularly in terms of topics, what do they find interesting to listen to talk about, I think we can then actually motivate them a little bit more. Now, with younger learners, we obviously can utilise a range of materials. I'm thinking of things like songs, chants, also maybe puppets, games, etc. I've got a couple of examples here of puppets, which I'll show you. Okay, we'll start with the good one. Aww. Hello. Cute. This is Bobby. Say hello to Bobby. Hello. Bit shy. All right then. Now, what's nice about puppets, as you know, with younger learners, you introduce your class puppet and you say, hello everybody, this is Bobby, and Bobby doesn't speak any Arabic. And young learners will believe you, and they'll do everything they can to communicate with Bobby in English. So highly motivating for young learners because they do want to talk, they want to take Bobby home, they want to use Bobby in class for dialogues, for stories, etc. And they will be doing their very best to communicate with Bobby, and it's a lovely thing to have. How many of you have a class puppet? A few of you, great. And which grades does it work well with? First grade, second grade? Okay, all right then. Yeah, very motivating for learners indeed. Now, Bobby was what we might call a commercially available puppet. I have my own homemade puppet here. That's cute, isn't it? It's a sock, a clean sock. That's very important. Okay, very easy to make. Okay, it's just buttons, it's some wool, and I'm not the most artistic person in the world, but even I could make a simple puppet. Puppets can be made in a variety of different ways, as you know. If you haven't got access to materials, you can also make puppets from just ordinary household objects, like cardboard tubes, sponges, and then students can also draw on their hands or also on their fingers. Puppets can be made in different ways, and you can rely on children's imagination to actually carry through the puppet experience and actually make it very worthwhile for them. So there are ways of introducing variety into your classroom through materials. I've mentioned here songs and chants. We won't do a song today, but rhymes and chants are certainly useful for our students. Do you use those in your classrooms? Yes. And do you get them from your course book or from other sources? Okay, all right. So maybe songs and rhymes from your course book. Rhymes and chants can be found in a variety of different places, from resource books and also on the internet as well. Here's one of my favourite chants, which I'm going to do with you now, and I'm going to do it as a kind of question and answer. And I'm going to do it a couple of times, simply because I think you want students to repeat the chants, but you want to keep the variety so that they don't get too bored. So this is what we're going to do. I'd like this half of the group, okay, so over here, you're going to be asking the question and you're going to be answering. And if you look, you can see how the chant is organised in that way. So basically, do you like polar bears? Yes. Da, 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 da. It's as simple as that, and I'll help you with that. When we practiced it the first time, we're going to do it a couple more times in different ways, as a way of introducing or keeping that variety, all right? So, can everybody see the chant? Excellent. Okay, I'm going to stand in the middle. Okay, I'm going to be directing you. You're going to be fine. You won't need me to do that. Okay, so what we can do is we can chant together, all right? And we're going to do it as question and answer. Are you ready, questioners? Are you sure? You're thinking about lunch, aren't you? All right, we're going to do this together. Are you ready? So, question. Do you like polar bears? Yes, I do. Do you like lions? Yes, I do. Do you like cats? Yes, I do. I like cats. I do too. Excellent. All right, now let's change it around. Question and answer. Okay. Oh, they're ready. They're off. All right, just 1 second. We'll do it all together. Are you ready? Go. Do you like polar bears? Yes, I do. Do you like lions? Yes, I do. Do you like cats? Yes, I do. I love cats. I do too. Very nice. And with your students, of course, you can substitute more appropriate animals, or you can get your students to suggest animals, and it can be a very nice pronunciation speaking activity to do. Now, as a way of keeping it sort of motivating, let's do it again. We're going to go back to this group here. You're going to be asking the question again. I want you to ask the question in an angry voice, and you're going to reply in an angry voice, okay? So please, can you get in touch with your inner anger? All right, so please, I want to see a frown. I want you to look really angry, and you're going to direct your question at them. Are you ready? Okay, let's start. Go. Do you like polar bears? Yes, I do.
Do you like lions? Yes, I do. Do you like cats? Yes, I do. I love cats. I do too.
Exactly. So a little bit of anger, please. Now, you can do it the opposite way. You can do it in a very friendly and a very kind of gentle way. So let's try it this way around. Okay, you're going to start. Questions, okay? So the opposite, please. So very, very sweet and gentle. Are you ready? Thank you very much. Okay, so you can get your students to do this in an angry way, a quiet way, a gentle way, any kind of emotions you want to bring into it, you can. You can get them to whisper, you can get them to shout, depending on how your neighbours feel in other classrooms. But you can practice the chant several times, but bring variety into it so that students actually enjoy it each time. Thanks very much for doing that. Okay, a few words about us. What do we actually need to do? So as a little summary of what we've talked about so far, I think we need to speak English in class as much as possible and where it's appropriate. We're not disregarding the mother tongue, there's a place for it, but I think as teachers we need to be aware of when it's good to use it and how much we can use, and to also give our students the exposure they need to natural, authentic sounding language. We want to provide good examples of language for our students, so not just what they see in the course book, but what they hear from you and from each other. I think we need to make speaking English fun, enjoyable. It's quite a risky business, speaking a foreign language in front of other people. And I think if we can give our students the confidence to do it by operating in a positive, relaxed atmosphere. Relaxed doesn't mean that students are just doing nothing. It means that they are actually stress-free. We don't learn terribly well if we're under pressure. We need our students to be productive. We need them to know that there is a purpose to what they're doing, but I think we also want to build their confidence as well. We want to give them a reason to speak. Some of my worst experiences when I was a newly qualified teacher was telling my students, okay, do a role play. You know, you're the doctor, you're the patient, have a conversation. And my dear, sweet students would try for about a minute, and then, of course, what would happen? They'd end up speaking in mother tongue. I used to think it was their fault, but I realise now it was my fault, because I didn't really prepare them adequately for that role-play task. So we want to give them a reason to speak, we want to give them good preparation for speaking, and we want to be able to support them while they're doing it and afterwards. So we need to provide structured tasks, whether it's some kind of role-play activity or discussion activity, a chant, a song, or whatever. And I think it's important to praise students as well. We want to give them positive feedback as a way of encouraging them to actually speak more. We've got examples here from English for Palestine, It's a speaking activity, and I think what's nice about this is the clarity here of the model that students are given. It's a very controlled activity, which I think is good, because it gives students very clear boundaries and parameters in which to work. It is a pair work activity. Now, again, there are good opportunities in English for Palestine to use pair work in class. Pair work has many advantages in the sense that students can develop their confidence through just working with a partner. It does, of course, represent quite a lot of very valid challenges for teachers. If you have large classes of 30 or 40 students, how do you manage so many students all working in pairs at the same time? There are ways of doing that. Unfortunately, now I can't actually share that with you, but I hope during the conference you've had an opportunity so far to think about how you might manage pair work in class. And you've got a follow-up activity, which is writing, so there's an integration of the skills as well. Okay, we've just got a few minutes to do a couple of games. Now, you may like to call these activities games, you may prefer to call them controlled language practice activities. Doesn't matter. The point is that it's getting students to practice language in what we hope is a motivating and enjoyable way. I've got some examples here. I don't think we'll have time to do all of them. We're just going to do a couple. I've got something called the balloon game, which we are going to do. Mind game, role play, don't stop in 20 questions. The ones that I can't demonstrate, I'll explain how to do them. Here's an example from English for Palestine. This is level grade 4. And I've chosen this because we've got some really nice vocabulary here. We've got jobs. And we're going to do the balloon game just to show how we can actually get students to practice this vocabulary in quite a fun way. I would like to invite, well, what should we say? 9 words. I could invite 9 people to come up here and join me. Would anybody like to come? You only have to say the words. I'm not going to ask you to do anything else. Would anybody like to come, or shall I choose? Oh, lovely, thank you. Okay, we have 1. A few more, please. Thank you, welcome. Would you like to come up here and join me? Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Just ladies. Just ladies.
We've got one
More confident.
That's right. That's fantastic. It's fine. That's absolutely fine. Yes, I mean, this number is great. Would you like to move? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, very, very simply, all you have to do, my volunteers here, is if you want to, it's probably easier if you can see and you can turn so that you can see the words that we're practicing. I just want you to try and repeat those words one by one. The idea is to say a word and keep the balloon up in the air. Okay? And I just have one rule. You're not allowed to say the same word as the person before you. Alright? So what's your name?
Iman.
Iman. Okay. Iman, you're going to start. You can choose one word. You can say the word. Hit the balloon up into the air, and then somebody, now, maybe would you like to stand at the end? Yeah, that would be good. Circle could also work. Should we put you in a circle? That's rather lovely. Join the circle. All right, so the balloon is going to travel round, first time, okay, one by one. And all you do is choose a word, hit the balloon up, okay, and you then have to say a word, hit the balloon, and it should travel round the circle. Shall we try it?
Yes.
And everybody, I don't want anybody falling off. Thank you, I'll have to catch them. All right then, Iman, over to you. Sorry, stop. I'll explain again, no problem. So, Iman, you said driver, so then you'll have to choose another word, different word. Let's start again. Oh, hang on, stop. Wait, this is level 2. Wait a minute. Okay, so, let's come back to you, that's fine. So, first time, we'll just go round the circle, in order. Okay, let's have a go. Off you go.
Nurse.
Excellent. Thank you.
Engineer. Farmer. Engineer.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to catch the balloon. Thank you very much to our volunteers. Can we give them a clap, please? Thank you. Is that something you could do with your students? Do you have space in your classrooms? No. If you haven't got space, could you take them outside? Yeah? All right, possible. If you don't like balloons, you could use a ball, or you could throw your puppet around and students have to catch him. Yeah? So different ways of actually doing that. Thanks very much to my volunteers. Okay, if we think back to, mind game, this is probably something that you've done with your students many times. You give each of your students a little card with a job on it. Students have to mime, they look at the card, they mime the job, all right, and then the other students have to guess what the job is. Yeah, so mind games can work very well. Role play. Okay, now don't do what I did, which is say you're a doctor, you're a patient, have a conversation. Role play can work very well with vocabulary, such as jobs, but students will need some help with the preparation. Probably a dialogue as a model first, and then what they can do is then practice the dialogue with some substitution of some vocabulary. So you're just giving them a little bit more freedom to perform the dialogue. They can practice this in pairs, and then you could get the best students to come to the front of the class and perform their role play for other people. That can work very well. Okay, now don't stop. I'd like you to play Don't Stop in small groups. We can start, if we want to, with jobs as a kind of vocabulary group, but I would be more than happy if you decided on your own topic for your group. This is what you do. Okay, I'd like you to work in groups of 4. So if you can see, people in the front can turn and work with 2 people behind. Okay, you can make a little group in that way. Or if it's easier, you can just make a little group of 4 people in the row, just as long as you can hear each other. Yeah? Lovely. You've got your groups. Say hello. Fine, thank you. In your groups, please, can you decide on your topic? It could be jobs, it could be fruit, it could be vegetables, it could be anything that your students need to learn and practice. And the idea is that the first person in the group has to start at A, the letter A, and they have to think of a vocabulary item beginning with that letter. Okay? Then the next student tries B and C and D, and you see how far you can go. Alright? See how far you can get in the alphabet. Now, this is a collaborative game. It's not a competition. The idea is that you can help each other, because the idea is that the whole team needs to get as far along the alphabet as possible. So we'll see how far you can go. See if anybody can get to Z. I don't know. So, in your teams, please, choose your topic. First person begins with A, then B, then C, then D, and help each other. Okay, off you go. I'm so sorry, time is up because I've just seen my watch. We will have to finish. Can I ask, how far did you get in the alphabet? You got to P, N. Excellent. What was your topic? Animals, and you got to N. That's fine. That's fine. It was an exercise in cooperation. So your team got to N, which was very good. Did any team get further than N in the alphabet? Wow, well done. You got to H. Excellent, well done. Which letter did you get to? Good. Oh, you did fruit. And how many letters did you get to? That's fine. It's quality, not quantity. Okay. Thank you. All right, everybody. So, an activity which can be used to recycle particular lexical sets could be fun and motivating for your students. The last one, 20 questions. We won't play that, but I wonder, are you familiar with how to play 20 questions? Yes? Some of you are, yeah? Could you explain?
Well, I think this game deals with asking questions to any student about something. The questions must be in yes or no answer only. And at the last question, the answer must be ready from that student to guess what the word is.
Thank you
Is
very
that right?
much. Absolutely, absolutely. So if we have our jobs, for example, you might give one student a job card, and the other students in the class have to ask questions, and as you suggested, you can only answer yes or no. So let's say in my mind I've chosen the word dentist, okay? You would have to ask me questions like, do you wear a uniform? Do you work outside? Are you da-da-da-da-da? All of these questions I can only say yes or no. You can ask me 20 in total, and if you don't guess my job, then I'm afraid after 20 questions, I'm the winner and you're the losers. Students enjoy this. It's excellent practice for question forms, but again, because it's reliant on guessing and speculating, students find it enjoyable to play. Okay. Everybody, we're going to have to finish. Thank you so much for your participation and your interest. That's my email address. By all means, keep in touch. It's always lovely to hear from teachers that I meet. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the conference.